Hey, this is Fred from the House of Fly. In a recent video, we talked about setting up spey rods, whether it's in a Skagit or Scandi format, and talked about reels and lines and a whole bunch of stuff. Today, we're actually going to get on the water and show you how to put the stuff together. We had a question on YouTube today from a fellow named Drew, and he asked, when you're fishing a Bam Bam on the Missouri River, do you fish with a Skagit line or a Scandi line? Well, the answer, Drew, is I fish with both, and it really depends on the water and the application. So we're going to get out on the river today, and we're going to kind of look at some of the different water types and put some lines in. A frequent question we get in the fly shop is, what flies should I use to swing on my Trout Spey setup? And there's definitely some considerations in terms of what patterns I fish with. It really comes down to which line I'm using, which water type I'm fishing, and so forth. So I've got my fly box here set up with 3 different groupings of flies, and it really is important to fish the right flies in the right water, just like you would whether you're fishing with nymphs or dry flies. So when I'm running my Skagit line and I'm fishing in faster water, that's when I'm going to go with a larger profiled fly, something like the Montana Intruder with a bunch of flash, the Bald Eagle, flesh-eating sculpin, the good old Space Invader, or my flash and grabs. When you're fishing in faster water, you know, the fish are going to have a little less time to see your fly. You want to, you know, give them something that, you know, has enough profile that they're going to react to it, and maybe some flash. Conversely, when you're fishing in soft water, slow water, water where your fly is not moving quickly, that's when I want to go with something smaller and much more on the natural end of the spectrum. That's where your leeches, your balance leeches, little squirrel leeches, some like micro clousers, and even some soft hackles can come into play. And then in that middle zone where you're kind of in that medium speed current, medium depth water, you can sometimes employ a little bit of flash, but that's where my Bam Bam becomes my favorite. It's just a perfect minnow pattern to imitate, and the fish are going to have a little bit of time to see it, so you want it to be pretty realistic. But maybe, you know, sometimes with the sun shining, you might want a little flash, and if it's not, you might want it to be just completely neutral. So you can play with it a little bit. Obviously, these patterns can cross over, but one consideration I don't think a lot of people think about is, if you're fishing a fly that's rather large, it has the ability to move in some current. So that's where, you know, you're going to run your bigger flies in the fast water. Conversely, when you're moving into the slower water realm, the fish have a lot more time to look at your fly. You want something that's a little bit smaller, a little less intrusive, and something that they are much more likely to pick up as a food source. So we've got here a real classic Missouri River situation where 2 fly lines can definitely come into play. The riffle here is real shallow, and it extends most of the way across the river. So where the current break is here, we've got some real soft water on the inside. And then toward the outer bank, we've got a lot of heavy current coming over that shelf and making a turn, and there's a really deep hole out there. Some fish will post up on this soft water on the inside, and if I was to run my Skagit line and sink tip, I probably wouldn't even make it over the shelf before I'd be hanging bottom. So the Scandi line is perfect to cast at the edge of the shelf and just get it to swing over in that 2 to 4 foot zone where those fish might be on that soft side. And then if I want to fish that deeper stuff, I'm going to need that Skagit head, and I'm running a 10-foot sink tip. And that will allow me to break through that surface flow and get down to that 3 to 5 foot of depth, or even more, where those fish are sitting underneath that heavy water. So we're going to start with the Scandi. We'll walk out there, make a few casts, and then we'll switch to the Skagit and go out to the fast stuff. So breaking this run down again, we started out with the Scandi on the inside where it was a little shallower and a little softer, and got a grab in there, and then moved to the outer faster edge where I needed the sinking tip of the Skagit to get down through that fast water, and managed to get a grab out there. Then at this water level, the river kind of kind of tanks out and gets into a little bit of an eddy here. And then below that eddy, it's going to turn into a big, broad flat. And I know from previous experience that the Skagit head's just going to be a little too heavy when I get down into that shallower flat zone. So I'm going to switch back to the Scandi line and run a few swings over that flat. Sometimes there's a good brown laying down there, so we'll go take a look. When we are talking about our Skagit setup and running a sink tip off of the Skagit head, a lot of people are uncertain as to what's the best choice to use. And of course, there is no one choice. We have a lot of different tip lengths and different tip densities and so forth. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the key ones that I usually will find that work the best for me in my situation. If I'm fishing a really moderate current or a shallow flat, then just the 10-foot slow sink poly leader is a great choice. If I'm fishing some shelves and bucket water where I need a little more sink, then the 5x5, the Mao tip, is a really good choice. That's probably one of the more popular tips sold on the Missouri River. And then I also really love these OPST, this series of tips. These are 12-foot tips. They really hold your fly in location at the depth you want it to be, and they have different densities for different water situations. We got the riffle for the shallower water, the run for the deeper water, and the bucket for the deepest water. I really love this series of tips from OPST. They come in 10 and 12-foot lengths. I like the 12-foot lengths. They really hold your fly at the depth that you're fishing. We've got the riffle series for the shallow stuff, the run series for that mid-level, and then the bucket series when you need to get down in deep buckets or over the fast water shelves. So literally the description is right on the package of your best usage for this lineup of tips. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, we would love to hear from you. If you have any tips or tricks that you would like to share, we'd love to hear those too. And if you'd like us to do a video on any particular topic, please let us know.